Hello, everyone. Brendan Edmondson here from the Honest and Open Conversations podcast. Before anything else, I want to begin by acknowledging yesterday's terrorist attack at Bondi. To the families and friends who lost loved ones, you have my deepest sympathies and my heartfelt condolences. Please know that you are in my prayers. To those who were spared physical injury but were forced to witness the horrific and confronting scenes that unfolded, I can only imagine the psychological toll that carries. I hope you're able to surround yourselves with support, care, and understanding as you process the atrocious actions of the two killers responsible for yesterday's violence. What happened at Bondi was not just an act of brutality. It was the foreseeable consequences of long-standing institutional failures. Failures by police command, failures by mainstream media, and failures, most importantly, by incompetent political leadership that many Australians have been warning about for years. This week's scheduled episode of the Honest and Open Conversations podcast, titled Why President Trump Matters, Even If You Hate Him, will be postponed until next week out of respect for the victims of yesterday's attack. All advertisements and promotional content have been paused, with regular posting resuming on Wednesday. Given the circumstances, releasing an episode that intersects with issues now under intense public scrutiny would be inappropriate and disrespectful, particularly while emotions remain raw in the immediate aftermath of this attack. However, I will be posting shorter videos throughout the week to encourage an exhaustive and honest public conversation in the hope that failures like this are confronted, understood, and prevented in the future. I believe the mainstream media, political leadership, and police command structures are already attempting to shape a narrative that is not only flawed but self-protective, designed to cover their own failures after repeated instances of incompetence. Already we are seeing the predictable and incoherent calls for firearm restrictions. We've seen this playbook before. As occurred in 1996, political leaders are again rushing towards anti-democratic responses, rather than confronting the root causes. There is a critical lesson from both yesterday's shooting and the Bondi Westfield stabbing. In both cases, the perpetrators were ultimately stopped by people with firearms who knew how to use them. In the violent future we are facing, public safety will increasingly depend on responsible, trained individuals who are capable of responding when institutions fail. In a functioning democracy, sweeping restrictions on civil liberties should be put to the people through an election, with all sides allowed to present their arguments. That principle exists in the United States. Australia deserves no less. Guns do not fire themselves. Violence does not originate from objects. It originates from people. And those who commit acts of mass violence are psychologically ill. Bad ideas cause violence. There must also be an honest discussion about Islam as an ideology. Not about individuals, but about belief systems. Islam as a political and legal ideology is incompatible with Western civilization, liberal democracies, and the Australian way of life. The refusal of politicians to confront this reality, combined with the failures in policing and intelligence, must be at the forefront of this discussion, rather than symbolic gestures designed to look decisive while avoiding responsibility. This tragedy was avoidable. It should never have happened. And serious questions must be asked about institutional failures, including those of the media, political and bureaucratic elites, and policing leadership in this country. Those questions cannot and should not be buried. What occurred yesterday at Bondi is not an example of the Australia I was born into, raised in, or love. I will defend this country with everything I have, even if it costs me everything. I won the lottery of life by being born an Australian. I'll be damned if Albanese, Minns, or any other corrupt, incompetent elite will be allowed to destroy this great nation on my watch.